and we'll have a few reflections, a few comments from members, and I think that will bring us to the end of our system change sessions today. Back to you, Felix. Just wanted to explain that a little bit.
Okay, so thank you, Vincent, for that introduction and the highlights on the agenda of today's meeting. So it's almost 9:12, so maybe we can invite our chair, that is Mr. Nkandu Joseph, to give us opening remarks. And with that, maybe we can now proceed with the sessions as it was planned. Thank you.
Okay, Felix, thank you very much for organizing for this interaction. I want to take this opportunity to welcome all members or participants that have made up time to come and participate in this session. I know for a fact that this part of the year is a very, very challenging one in terms of the time to find to be able to participate, given the fact also that we are also living in a very, uncertain times, given COVID, but also other issues like for some of us here in Uganda, we are into election, time. So it is very, very challenging. So I take the opportunity to thank members who have found the time to come and join. Having listened to what Professor Ngabirano has shared with us and another faculty member who will be leaving, soon, just in case they are called upon, I have deeply thought about this, that probably we are going to miss key members, and I don't know who other members of management will be or have already joined us. If we do not have the core management team participating in this, I just want to request Vincent that probably we may have to have another session, but this one can act as a flavor into this subject. But given the importance of it, that we may have really to find some other time in addition to the first one, such that we go quite deep, into this, because for a fact that members could be, moving in and out from time to time, including myself, because I had not had, a full agenda, early enough. So I could not postpone the other commitments. So I thought it was going to take about an hour. But look at it, think about this and see. But based on what I know of this subject being so important, I felt it necessary to make those comments such that we give it the necessary attention, because it is an impactful one if we want really to make a transformative change in what we are doing as a university and also across our society. So Felix, over to you and Vincent and the rest of the members. Thank you very much. If you would like to first discuss my comments and we find a way forward, well and good.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Felix, did you
Welcome.
want to say something? Because so, Chairman, what you have said is absolutely valid, and I mean, even just from the initial statements from a couple of members who will be stepping out, I immediately became a bit worried because, like you've said, this is a very important element of what Ashoka is bringing into the TESCEA project. And I will not be streaming my video because what I've noticed also my connection taking this from home, and it seems like a lot of people at home is becoming a bit shifty. But yes, it's a very important element because element of the social innovation framework that Ashoka as an organization is supposed to support all the four universities in understanding in a way that helps the universities with the with the tools, with the knowledge, and also with the network on how to institutionalize, that would support institutionalizing the changes, the innovations that are coming out of TESCEA, and also how to scale this beyond the institution. So this is one of those 7 elements. The first one that we did was, of course, the collaborative impact. So then this one is a system change, is equally important. But because there will be a couple of people stepping out, dropping off because of other commitment, I take that into consideration. And I was already just looking at some of the the content that I had on the slide, and I'm seeing what would be of importance, especially under these circumstances, like you've framed it really well, to provide a flavor, to provide a background of what systems change is all about. And I could follow up with other resources that members can find time to read and get a better understanding. Uh, but then we'll count on Felix and the rest of the team to try and set up another date where we can get into the systems change work, like get into the deep end of systems change. And as you know, Joseph, and the rest of you also familiar with the systems change, at Ashoka, for instance, we have it as a course, and this is usually a 7-week course, just to
Yeah,
cover everything in systems change. So it's quite
exactly.
intense. Yeah. So what we aim to achieve here is basically to remind ourselves, for those of us who are already familiar with systems change, and introduce it to those who are not familiar with it, but already because UMU has really been at the far end in terms of implementing TESCEA. It will not be a surprise to me if immediately after this call, we are able to very fast think of ways that we can institutionalize, steps to institutionalize these innovations that we are talking about and start making connections for the systems level change that TESCEA aims to achieve. So having said that, I just want to, bring it back to Felix and the rest of the team if anyone has a comment, but I totally concur with the chairman. I can make it a little bit lighter. Then I will follow up with some resources. I'll share some resources that members can read, but then also hoping that we will be able to start working on some ideas on how to institutionalize the innovations and also how to drive these to a systems change. I'll stop there if there are any quick reactions.
All right. Thank you, Vincent, and our chair, Mr. Kandu, for the remarks and comments that you've made. I would say that we have members of management joining. I see some members there. There's Dr. Richard Ouma, and maybe I'll try to follow up to see how they're trying to join the Zoom meeting. About Eva, I think Eva is our technical person, so I think her comment was basically to let me know that she'll be stepping out and I should continue with the technical support of this meeting. So I'll say that really people leaving is not something that will affect the proceeding of this meeting. Eva supports us with the technical aspects of hosting meetings like this, so I'll be the technical person. Yes. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Felix. So, um, my name, for those whom I've not met before, and for the introduction, I'll just stream video. Um, my name is Vincent, Vincent Odhiambo, and I work with Ashoka. I'm based here in Nairobi, leading Ashoka's work in East Africa. And Ashoka is one of the partners for TESCEA. As you all know, this is a program to transform employability for social change in East Africa. So together with UMU, other universities, Gulu, Mzumbe University in Tanzania, and University of Dodoma, we have embarked on this journey for quite a bit of time right now. And the very specific contribution of Ashoka in this partnership stems from the history of Ashoka, and also the pedigree of Ashoka in terms of the network that we have. In terms of history, is because at the very beginning, at the conception of the project, there was the idea of, and this remains the idea, how do we prepare students for employability? How do universities get, I mean, how do we address this challenge of students, graduates coming out and, there are no job opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And Ashoka, having defined the field of social entrepreneurship, was seen as a perfect partner in this partnership to bring our insight, first of all, on what social entrepreneurship is all about. How do you prepare? What are the insights, to help one, to nurture entrepreneurial mindsets, to nurture, new leadership, new ways of leading, to nurture problem solving, to nurture critical thinking, to bring all those insights to support the program based off the work that our fellows have been doing. So Ashoka briefly has been searching and supporting leading social entrepreneurs, like our chairman here, Joseph Nkandu, is one of our Ashoka fellows. And the idea here for Ashoka was that these men and women who in the early 80s, the world didn't know so much about them. They did exist, but the world did not know so much about them. So the founder of Ashoka decided to start a process of looking for them and supporting them to scale their innovation. And while doing so, shining a spotlight on them, on their life journeys and their venture. But also at the same time, as an organization, we were able to scoop some insight on really what makes them tick, what makes them, a cut from above all the rest of other social entrepreneurs. Why are they leading social entrepreneurs? And that was one of the reasons why then we connected with the partnership. The reason for us having that network of leading social entrepreneurs. So that's one thing that we got from them, is that they're leading social entrepreneurs because they are not satisfied with just offering direct interventions, direct services, or indirect services where it is multiplying or building an organization to be big, but they are more interested in causing systemic change. So TESCEA was the thinking with TESCEA was to institutionalize, to bring about innovations within universities, to bring about transformation within universities, whether in curriculum design, as this has been happening, whether it's in looking at pedagogy that is supportive of, a gender-responsive pedagogy, all the different pieces of TESCEA. That was the idea. But also there was the thinking that we need to move this from just being within a university. Let's not just make universities, these particular universities, be the centers of excellence. How do we transform? How do we shift this? How do we move these innovations and transformation to a system level where other universities, the higher education space, will get to appreciate the innovations and adopt some of these innovations? So it is partly, so that is how then Ashoka comes in to say, hey, we have some insight on how to effect systems change. We have some insights on how to institutionalize change. So it is part of what we are doing within the TESCEA project, supporting other universities to institutionalize the changes and to start their journey collectively towards effecting systems change. At the same time, also, the network that I mentioned, the leading social entrepreneurs, within the partnership, there was an understanding that we need to connect the universities with our fellows, the social entrepreneurs that we have. And I was excited that even before we had suggested this with Max, I think back then he had already reached out. The university had already reached out to Joseph Nkandu. So that was the second thing that we were to bring. So broadly, we were to bring an understanding of social innovation. We did 7 elements, including systems change, collaborative impact, and 5 other elements that we will be introducing in the subsequent months, hopefully, and to connect the university with our network. First, our core network, which is the fellows, then our broader network, which is the reason why we also have a stakeholder engagement strategy for the universities. So that is our Shoka Connect with the TESCEA project. And so far, it has been an exciting journey. We've learned a lot as an organization. You know, and also we've had an opportunity to develop some tools that we did not have initially, like the Changemaker journey tool, the Changemaker and employability journey tool, which is helping universities to create student and lecturers portfolio. I will stop there, and I'll get back to the systems change, and I will just pause my video and see if I can go back to sharing my screen. Just one moment. But just want to find it. Are you able to see my presentation yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I
Yeah,
believe
now.
now you can see it. Okay. So we are going to do this. So the next, this was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting, but I know I've also tried to condense it, just being sensitive of the time and the season that we are in. Don't want to take so much of our time, and also a lot of this also a number of content here that I will share in a separate, as a separate package. So the aim for this session is basically to provide the JAG leadership and the TSG leadership and the university management with ideas and also tools to develop impact strategy for TESCEA, to kind of move this from just being an institutional thing towards being more of a system level change, where other universities can borrow from what UMU is doing, and not just universities in Uganda, but thinking about it as across. So, like I said, Ashoka has been identifying and supporting these system changes, these fellows like Joseph. And if you read about Joseph's work, if he shares about his work, you will understand a lot about system change, because that is what Joseph's work is all about. So from 1980, we've learned about this kind of work, how to effect system change, from about 3,500 Ashoka fellows. And these are fellows across over 90 countries. So you talk to any Ashoka fellow, any social entrepreneur on how they've effected their change, we have gotten to understand what it takes, how the journey looks like, what tools are necessary to really move an innovation, to scale an innovation from just a small geography to a bigger geography. Some of them have actually affected system change at the global level. So and that has been one of our very key insights, like to scale a social innovation or to scale any innovation, like in this case, the TESCEA innovations. There are innovations that are coming through UMU because of TESCEA, but also from engaging with the leadership, the JAG leadership, the TESCEA team leadership before. It's very clear that there are specific innovations that UMU celebrates, and these are also part of innovation that we are hoping we can piggyback on the TESCEA framework to scale, right? So one of the things that we have noticed that really drives the fellows to achieve, transformative scale, because that is what we need when you talk about trying to address the issue of youth unemployment, and also trying to match challenges with solutions in Africa, we need to have transformative scale when it comes to innovation. So what we have noticed is that it is not about growing a large organization. It is not about that. It is more, instead it is more of proving an effectiveness of a new concept, and then finding ways to spread that idea so widely that it becomes mainstream. And I will be referencing to Joseph a lot here because we are happy to have him as part of the as the JAG lead and part of this meeting. If we look at the work that and how he is pushing this brilliant idea to be mainstream, he is not just doing it in Uganda. There are, I mean, I know, Joseph, you've had, meetings also with the, Meru County government in Kenya. In other words, this is something that is beginning to get people's attention, right? And so the effort here is, how do you get this to be mainstreamed widely? And this is what we are talking about when we talk about systems change. How do we get, whether it is the gender responsive pedagogy, whether it is a transformative learning experience that UMU has embraced, how do we get this to be mainstream? So there's something interesting which I really want to share with you, just in a way of still cementing, emphasizing on this element of system change, why it is important for TESCEA. So in 2018, we did a survey, and this was a global survey amongst all our fellows, all these fellows, including Joseph, to analyze what impact our fellows were particularly excited about on their systems change, perspectives and strategy. What is it that were they attributing their change of direction or their acceleration to a system change to their connection with Ashoka? That is one of the things that we wanted to find out. So we were asking them whether, as a result of our engagement with the organization, their engagement with the organization, they were able to change how they think about systems change and how they, they viewed, the perspective of new leadership, how they lead as entrepreneurs. And it was amazing. I mean, so the results were really, really amazing. When asked whether Ashoka's help did help them to see their work as systems change at a systems change level, so 86% of them responded positively. And in the survey also, we went ahead to ask them, to ask especially those who saw their work differently, whether their strategy had changed from their interaction with a shocker and the specific tools that we had and ideas that we had shared with them through systems change conversations. And 92% confirmed that they had fully changed their strategy because of their interaction with the tools and the systems and the framework, with the tools and the ideas and the frameworks that we had shared with them. So I am sharing that just to put an emphasis there in terms of why this is important, like Joseph was saying. But again, because this is going to be light touch, we are going to make sure, I'm going to make sure that we don't, ideally, like I said, this is a 7-week course. So what we are providing here is basically something to catalyze our thinking, to push us, a little bit further in terms of institutionalizing those changes and beginning to think what networks, what partnerships do we need to cultivate to get us towards, scaling these innovations to be mainstream, right? So the way, I give you an example, the ways that we've seen most of these fellows getting into systems change, and most organizations also, even if I move away from the fellows, the way they affect systems change are varied, right? But the common ones we've seen, it's the ones that like usually give quick win is open source, creating an avenue for other people to learn from you. The other one has been building smart networks. How do you bring people who are if it's universities, if it's a East Africa University Council, something like that, how do you bring them into exposure, to awareness of your innovations and your transformations? And then the other way that we've seen a lot of system change also happening is through policy changes, right? So I will just stop there for a minute just to get if there are any reactions to my introduction to system change broadly before we get into the root cause analysis, the 5R presentation. Is there any quick reaction? Did anything I said there resonate with you? Either as someone who is familiar with systems change or someone, I mean, just as part of the TESCEA team, is there something there that resonated with you? Is there something that I said that triggered a question for you? So maybe just for a minute there, because my intention is also to really make this as interactive and as collaborative as possible.
Hello, Vincent.
Yes.
This is Albert.
Hi, Albert.
Yes, I'm very enthusiastic by your presentation. I just see, how do you say this is going to be a 7 week interaction? I'm just curious. I would be ready to have the 7 weeks, but how is it going to happen? What did you mean by that?
Okay, thank you, Albert. So what I meant is that this is not going to be 7 weeks, but when we are doing systems change, when we really dive deep, at the beginning you had Joseph say he understands this. So when we dive deep into systems change, where we are infusing both the theory and the practice, it takes 7 weeks. So for instance, in one sitting, and this could be like the 2-hour sitting that we are having today. So in one sitting, you get to understand, we talk about this is what systems change is all about, the definition of systems change, and getting all the questions and reactions about that, getting people to think through what systems are around them. Like in this case, one of the group assignment will be, try and define the system within which UMU is operating. How is that ecosystem? So looking at that level of details where you're bringing theory, but also immediately thinking the practicality of it all, it takes 7 weeks for each of these areas that we are going to cover here. It takes about 7 weeks. And in fact, what I did also with this, seeing that this was going to be 2 hours, I have just condensed them. Ideally, for those 7 weeks, the way these ones are usually structured is not even the way you're seeing it here. There is the introduction. The first week is basically introduction to system change. Then we look at the target of that system. Where do you want to target? And this is where we get deep into the 5R framework. Then we look at the journey towards the targeted system, or just the essential. What are the essential milestones that you need to cover as an institution, or as an organization to make that shift? Then we look at the tools and delivery models. How do you want to deliver this? What are the necessary tools? We look at the possible partnerships, the type of partnerships, that are needed to drive this kind of change. Then we look at weaving the change. In particular, how do you develop the necessary leadership that is needed for system level change? How do you move everyone who is involved in a project to have the system leader mindset, and to proactively engage the ecosystem? And so those are like 7 topics. And the 7th one is usually, looking at funding that systems change. When you're thinking about funding systems change, of course, for us here within TESCEA, we'll be thinking, how do we fund the innovations? When you're talking about institutionalizing those innovations, getting this to be large scale within the university, you'll be thinking, how do we fund that? Then beyond just institutionalizing them within the university, to scale it out, how do you fund system change and how do you measure impact? So all those 7 key areas, when you dive deep, and you're diving deep by exposing the participants to the theoretical angle of it, the theoretical side of it, but also providing an opportunity for for people to roll their sleeves up and dig deep and practically engage. It takes 7 weeks. so this is not the one that is going to take us 7 weeks. This one we're going to do it in 2 minutes. But of course, there will be a lot of other resources that I will be sharing with you as time goes. Albert, I know that was a long version of the answer.
It is okay, very okay, Vincent.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to just try to take us just slowly now in terms of what is systems change. I can say broadly, this is the third level of impact that every innovator should always aim at achieving. The first level is usually the direct service. So I give you an example. It is good to have police officers or even teachers, people who are giving that, that service. So giving access to education, providing access to education by, building more universities, that is direct service. Converting most colleges, I don't know if this has been the case in Uganda, but in Kenya previously, years back, many colleges were converted into universities because we wanted to get, the government policies were to get everyone to, as many people as possible to acquire university education. So that was addressing the issue of access to education. Then the the second level impact is now when you are thinking, the same, like how about we spread these universities to even the counties that probably don't have, again, it's the same thinking, but now having many of those direct services. Then the third level is systems change. We're saying, what is it, what is the problem, what is the actual problem that we are trying to address here? So system change is about scaling social impact. In this case, if you think about it from the prism of TESCEA, how are we going to scale what we are already seeing as potential impact from the TESCEA project, rather than scaling an organization, rather than establishing UMU as, let's say UMU is at the University of Excellence. So the idea is not to replicate, to get another UMU in Nairobi, another UMU in Dar es Salaam, another UMU in Kigali. It is to replicate, the innovation, the transformation that UMU has achieved through TESCEA. So that is what systems change is all about. So what does large scale lasting change look like? Now, when you talk about large scale and lasting change, you are looking at how to question and understand the system that is relevant to your work. Like in our case here now, TESCEA, this is given without, it goes without saying, it's all about education. So within the education, higher education, what is the system? And like I said, I know this is a refresher for many of you already who are conversant with systems change. But when we talk about the higher education space, what is it that comes to mind? And you can even bring it down to the departments that are running TESCEA, where most of this TESCEA transformation is happening, and you cast the university now as a system. Think about it, because you want to institutionalize these changes, you want to scale this even within the university. What is that system? How does it look like? And how is the system relating to the problem we are trying to solve here? So if we are looking at it from the level of university, how is the university system relating to the problem of youth unemployability, the problem of gender responsive pedagogy? How is the university relating to that? Then you can cast it even wider now and look at it from an higher education ecosystem. How is that system relating to the problem you're trying to solve? So those are the things that, those are the questions that you begin to ask yourself when you are thinking about system change. So essentially, type of change, you're beginning to find answers for what type of change is needed and how can this be achieved? I wish it was even more interactive. So when my video, when my network stabilizes a bit, I'll try and see if anyone else is also streaming the video. But so that is it. Like what sort of change is needed and how can we achieve this? So it is moving from direct service, thinking beyond indirect service, and thinking the broader system. Where does this challenge, where does this problem sit within the broader ecosystem? And how does the system relate with this problem? Is it something that the system is aware of, and there is animation within the system to change it, to make things better? Those are the questions that you begin to ask yourself. And what is that particular change that is needed, and how do we achieve this? And I think and at the beginning of conceptualization of the project and implementation of the project, we had this push and shove a lot as Ashoka and the project, especially the project lead and Sphere that is supporting the project. We were of the opinion that we should be starting this conversation at the very beginning. But they were of a different opinion. They wanted to see the changes first. They wanted to see what is happening at the university. Then we bring this kind of conversation later. But if you ask me, again, I think even as we talk about this, you begin to realize that this was already covered in one way or the other, by identifying what the problem is, and maybe having an idea what the system, how the system is responding to this problem, and what is needed to achieve this. But let me just stop there, just to make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of what systems change is all about. And in fact, when you go through, when you look at that entire trajectory, I mean, from direct service, the direct changes, we need teachers to be more proactive in developing their work plans. We need, the number of lecturers who have gone through the transformative learning to change the way they deliver their lectures, how they engage their students, so this is in particular classes, particular courses. But what is the problem that is addressing? Are we able to cast that wide, broadly, and begin now to address it, begin to think, position it within a system? Let me just stop there again if there is any reactions, if there are any questions. Yeah.
It's Albert again.
Yes, Albert.
I just wanted to connect what you have just said to you. Many times talked of mainstreaming before this latter presentation. I just want to know how maybe we may take it for granted, but maybe not all of us may understand what mainstreaming consists in and how does it relate to this systems change and the scaling. I don't know whether it's a vague question.
Sorry, Albert, it's because you losing you a bit as you explain it. But I know you're asking, how do we relate mainstreaming to systems change, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, so everything starts from an idea. So this is the idea that we have. And I want to try and explain this also just within TESCEA as much as possible. So if you're saying we need to have graduates, more critical thinkers, more problem solvers, right? So that is the understanding. And then we've realized one of the ways to get graduates to think as problem solvers, to be problem solvers and think critically, is to redesign the curriculum, so that then the curriculum, the way it is delivered, provides them that space to critical think and also to problem solve. It is also in introducing a tool like the change maker and employability journey, where they have very clear milestones on how they're growing as problem solvers and critical thinkers. So growing and also implementing it, right? So that is an idea, and we developed some concept out of that idea. Now, the end game is really to change, to influence these changes at a system level. So now, so the idea has already gotten shape. How do you mainstream this? How do you institutionalize this? I think that is the first thing. Now, within the university, it can be passed as a policy, or around how all lecturers will need to embrace transformative learning. It can pass as a policy that to align it as much as possible towards gender responsive pedagogy. So if it passes internally as a policy, and I'm also using this term policy loosely here, it could be with universities, it's probably just rules and regulations that will govern, whichever way, something that it could be a culture thing. How do we institutionalize, how do we create a culture and embed it, a culture of critical thinking, a culture of problem solving? How do we create this culture and then embed it in the way we interact, in the way we do our things? So that is mainstreaming. And the way, the idea here to mainstream it is because at the end of the day, you want to have UMU as a prototype of a university that is graduating students who are problem solvers, critical thinkers. UMU as a university that is modeling what our students will look like in terms of addressing the issue of employability and social change. So the connection here is that there must be a prototype. There must be evidence of this happening, being effective somewhere before you now take it to the system. Now we have a prototype here, and that is essentially what keeps a lot of social entrepreneurs, people like Joseph, awake at night. They're not just about, we just want to do this here and stop at this. We want to develop this and have it as a proof of concept, and have it then, either government can reach out and say, we want to take this, we want to implement this, so that is the thinking. So you have to mainstream it, using the term mainstreaming to mean institutionalize it, to mean developing a concrete prototype before you move out to say, this is what we have and it can effect this change, and it addresses this challenge within the system. So like the definition that you're seeing on my screen, it is addressing the root cause of social problems. It is an intentional process designed to fundamentally alter the components and structure that cause the system to behave in a certain way. If we are convinced it is the curriculum, that is a component. If we are convinced it is the hierarchical way that the higher education is set up, and we change that, then that also leads to a system change. So it is looking at how do you alter the components and the structures that cause the system to behave in a certain way, and cause them to behave in a way that you want it to behave. What components, what structures do we need to have in place to help us transform employability for social change in East Africa? And now we're beginning to see this is already the mechanics of this happening at the university. It is the curriculum redesign. It is gender responsive pedagogy. It is a change maker and employability journey. Now, how do you institutionalize this so that they are happening across the university? And how do we now position the university as a model for it to influence, for other universities to learn from UMU, and then make this an intentional process collectively with other universities to push the wider higher education policy to embrace these changes.
Vincent.
Yes, Joseph.
Thank you very much. Can I add on, something from my own experience?
Yes.
Of course, thank you very much for the elaborate explanation about mainstreaming. Um, just to give my, what I've gone through or what I continue to go through, um, and the real experience that many Ugandans, and particularly those within the agriculture sector, have gone through or are still going through, and which explains why, you know, it is a real challenge for transforming Uganda into a middle income country. You know, as I give my personal experience, when I was born on the coffee farm, growing up on the coffee farm, and having challenges of getting school fees early enough, you know, by my parents to clear, uh, you know, school, you know, it was so disturbing that my parents were coffee farmers who were dealing with the most lucrative commodity, but they were not getting enough. So that was so disturbing for me, because in class I was always learning that coffee was Uganda's main cash crop. You know, my parents owned a 15-acre farm. I also came to learn later that coffee was not only Uganda's main cash crop, but the world's second most traded commodity. So, you know, think about that. So if those were the facts, and in exam, that question we do not miss, what is Uganda's main cash crop? Always coffee. But my parents could not really get enough quickly to push me to school. So that meant something complex which needed to be solved. So just to bring you to speed, when I went through my education with the kind of suffering that I went through, and then to university, and after finishing, to analyze this problem, you know, I discovered that whereas farmers were into coffee farming, they did not really own the coffee. And I want to explain this quickly. You find that as the so-called middlemen, traders, approached the farmers to find out how much they were selling coffee, the farmers immediately would say, how much are you buying? And as I went on also to ask the farmers, how much are you selling coffee? They would ask me, Joseph, supposing you were a coffee buyer, how much would you buy? So farmers could not be able even to negotiate, even to say the price of the coffee. Farmers did not know even the real use of this coffee, because they were not coffee drinkers. And the farmers were not adding value to their coffee. So literally farmers were simply custodians. Now for me to ensure that we were able to make a breakthrough was to say that you farmers, now we need to develop consensus that you needed to start owning your coffee. And that was the time when the farmer ownership model was born. Now, the farmer ownership model meant that you farmers, before you sell your raw commodity coffee, you needed to transform it by way of value addition. And when you add value, this is how much you'll be able to earn. And by earning reasonable returns from your investment, then you are able to take your children to school, even to invest in the future of your grandchildren. So that was the idea to do with the farm ownership model. Now I started mobilizing the farmers, but when I did that, I discovered later that there were skills which were missing, and they were not being provided at the university where I went through. So then I had to go to the university where I went to talk to the authorities that, look here, we need this kind of skills. to ensure that we go along the value chain and have value added coffee. Therefore, that informed curriculum reforms at Makerere University. And as if that was not good enough, when the curriculum is reformed, it also meant that there was need for a national coffee policy. And while curriculum reforms at the Makerere University started, I also pursued, policy reforms to ensure that Uganda as a country has a national coffee policy. The fact that farmers must own their coffee, and owning their coffee meant taking responsibility to add value to their coffee, and that government needed to have a supporting policy in place, and that even the government needed to put up, a dedicated coffee research institute. Now, what I'm describing now is mainstreaming now the idea, the farmer ownership model, which looks at that now we needed the skills, even if we are putting up a factory, but do we have graduates with the necessary skills? So the universities had to answer that through curriculum reforms. Then can we have farmers also directly marketing their value added coffee, and they have a supporting coffee research institute in place supported by government? That was the policy. And as I speak to you now, there is a dedicated, coffee research institute backed up with a national coffee policy. So by having a policy, it was to do with mainstreaming. By having curriculum reforms, that was partly also mainstreaming that idea that way. And then we have continued on to have, other universities coming on board, within the country, but also now, across the region and even beyond. So I wanted to just provide you with my own practical experience of what I'm going through, looking at an entire ecosystem of how industry, works closely with academia and also policymakers to cause impact at the end, of the day. I
Yeah.
submit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joseph. So that is good. I mean, and this is why I was saying we are indeed lucky, because when you have someone who has lived this journey, who is experiencing this journey, some of the things that we can explain and get from a theoretical point of view, and even get more of an academic understanding of them, when this is cast within like against a background of practice of something that has been happening, I think it provides more it provides more a better opportunity to really grasp it and understand what is it that we are talking about. So Joseph, thank you so much for that illustration, because also what it has done for me, I'm realizing also that when I was responding to Albert's question, and Albert, remember I said I was using the term a bit loosely, because I'm realizing I did focus a little bit on the internal institutional mainstreaming, like how do you make this innovation a part and parcel of everything that is doing. And Joseph are now giving us a more industry, external facing mainstreaming, which can come through policy, can come through wholesome mindset shift, can come through shifting market dynamics, can come through social and business congruence, like all these different ways of really getting something to be the norm. So I mean, so in short, it's how do we bring about normalization of an innovation, normalization of a transformation, so that everyone sees this as this is the way to go, this is it. So thank you so much, Joseph, for that.
Vincent,
Now,
I want to check
yeah.
whether I I am with you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to understand from you,
Yeah,
even from different examples, is that Africa has been exporting raw materials for since time of colonialism, when the colonialists came to look for raw materials for their industries.
yeah,
We have done this up to date, and it has also been importing finished goods from those raw materials from abroad. We have got them from Europe, we are getting them from China, Japan, and everywhere. And we have schools, we have governments, we have universities that teach uh, children, people how mechanization, teach them engineering, teach them whatever. And yet we produce cotton, and yet afterwards we import used clothes for our skins.
yeah,
Are we saying that system change that you are talking about is that kind of education that could come out of the university that will prepare into the governance of society, that will prepare into manufacturers and whatever, so that we change our systems to now exporting only finished goods? We use our raw materials and export finished goods, and other areas we teach our engineers, and then we don't import engineers from China to come and work on our roads. Am I with you? I'm just trying to check whether we are together.
yeah. Yes, yes, yes. For the Max, that's. I mean, we are together. You are
Yeah,
spot on.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and
Professor.
yeah, yes, Joseph, you can add
Vincent,
something. Yeah.
would you like me to respond to that
Yes, yes,
also?
yes. Respond. I'm also excited the way the angle that Father Max has brought about, because this is why, projects like TESCEA, and Joseph, I'll just give you time. This is why the projects like TESCEA are absolutely important, and this is why getting inspirations from people like Joseph is absolutely important. One, the education system in Africa, I usually look at it as double jeopardy. On one level, this is an education system that was structured to produce factory workers. And we all say this, we all know this. And factory workers here means not just people working in an assembly line. It's whether you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. It was basically people who respond to actions. I mean, we are reactive. We just move. You don't question. You don't ask. You don't think. It's just because of A, B follows, because B, then C. It is linear thinking that way. That is the kind of education system. But then for Africa, that first instance for it being a factory, an education system oriented toward producing factory workers, that was across the globe. Then for Africa, it was double jeopardy, because it was not just to produce factory workers, it was now to produce subservient factory workers. So factory workers who will only respond to yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. There is no room for thinking outside the box. There is no room for critical thinking. There is no room for creative problem solving. You just do this because the master said this is the way it's supposed to do, and you follow. But yes, Joseph, so I like that, the angle that Max has brought. So what we are saying, the kind of system that we need the system to change, we need the innovations, the transformation that we are seeing within universities, like what we are seeing with TESCEA, whether it's the pedagogy, the curriculum, the experience, the teaching and learning experience for both lecturers and students, whether all of those or one, or I mean, we can look at them collectively. If these are the silver bullets that we need, then we need to move them from UMU, get other universities to know about them, embrace them. Then we create this, very intentional and a critical mass of universities that are showing leadership, that are aligned, know what problem we need to solve, and then engage with policymakers the way Joseph has, to effect that change at the policy level. But yeah, Joseph, we can weigh in as well.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And Many thanks to Professor Ngabirano for that, analysis. And that is the way it is, what systems change is about to bring, which has never been the case before. In fact, what systems change is saying is that no single intervention is about to cause a transformative change in society. So we have to approach it from a more systems change approach, such that we are able to make a progress, not only for the current, but also for the future generations. When we talk about the raw materials that Africa has produced for a long time, it partly it is explained by our education system, the kind of education system that was passed on to us by the colonial masters was for us, and I will talk for agriculture now, was for us to concentrate at the primary production level, primary agriculture, put emphasis there without bridging primary agriculture with industry. And this is from my own practical experience through the curriculum that I went through, at Makerere University. And therefore, that meant that if the whole mighty graduate of the university was not exposed to the manufacturing side of the story, then how do you expect, you know, uh, entrepreneurs, to tap into the lucrative revenues that, are made towards the end of the value chain? Even when they introduced mechanization, mechanization was only to do with the primary agriculture. And they emphasized the large scale kind of mechanization of producing raw material agricultural products, but not the kind of mechanization that relates to manufacturing finished, products. That was never, even up to today. You go to the, the universities that have existed, since colonial times, even up to today, the kind of mechanization that they teach is for primary, agriculture. Remember, the kind of investment that is necessary for primary agriculture is that high, but the returns, are very, very insignificant. Even today, when we go into like oil that has been discovered, the emphasis is on extraction, extracting in form of raw materials, but not finished. You see? So basically, systems change is addressing this inherent kind of problem that has existed for a long time, and that we need to look closely at what we have us within the country, within the region, within the African continent, and see what is that we can take up to the end of the value chain that will help us to earn better returns on the investment, and that what skills are needed, and that what policies are needed. Today, recent here in Uganda now, government has been able to come up with the National Development Plan 3, and it is emphasizing agro-industrialization. But now, recently we had an annual review by Ministry of Agriculture, and I was asked to make a presentation, which I did. But looking around the entire conference room, I did not come across any representative from all the universities that we have in this country what input that they are making. And if you ever asked, our higher institutions of learning, the kind of training, the kind of curriculum, how does it speak to our Vision 2040? How does it speak to the various national development plans that we have been, having? So this is why systems change becomes very, very important, that all parts are connected and they are speaking to a shared vision that is needed to cause impact. We have to go beyond the immediate deliverables. And this is why my interaction, I wouldn't want to mention names, but the emphasis our institutions have always put on having so many, for example, or masters or having PhDs, but at the end of the day, what is the impact to society are we getting? In fact, recently there was I think 2 days ago, there was a headline on newspapers that government government is skilling. I will get it before this session ends. Government is skilling graduates who come out unskilled. Something like that. So think about it. So all this, what it means that the interaction that must be there between the academia, industry, policy, all through from micro to macro level is very, very important. While we are watching all global trends such that we can act, locally, the transformative change is very, very important. So I'm happy, Professor Ngavirano has the same understanding of what this systems change is all about. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Just, I hope, I mean, and if I was going through this for the first time, I would really appreciate, because the way you are able to connect this, the theory part to the actual living examples, the illustrations of what is actually happening practically, is helping me even get to a really better understanding of system change and even the different players and how to drive that vision. So I really, really appreciate that. I don't know if anyone else has comments, but on my screen, you can see the 4 features of a system. And this, again, I know is almost like a refresher to all of us. A system basically has multiple connected parts. The parts work together to produce outcomes. They can't produce alone. I think, Joseph, you talked about that. You've mentioned something in relation to where, one thing, we cannot just drive one transformation. I mean, we have to think about the interconnectivity with other parts. It also has a specific border. But the more we are getting to learn this, the more we are getting deeper into systems, and the more the world is now talking about cross-sectoral collaborations. The world is talking more of, bringing silos down, breaking down walls. We're beginning to see, like, even systems that initially seem to have very specific borderline, those borders are becoming a little bit loose. So maybe in the very near future, we will not be talking about a system having this as a feature, like having a specific border, because we are seeing there's fluidity around so many borders, whether thinking education, think agriculture, think, health, like there is that level of interconnectivity within our systems. And it is, of course, part of a larger system. So those 4 key features are really important for us as we think, and we put this within the TESCEA context. And this will be more of our work as we retreat after this, as JAG, part of the TSG University leadership, just looking at what are these parts? What do these parts look like for TESCEA? What did these parts look like for UMU in terms of institutionalizing the changes that we've seen, the innovations that we are seeing, and also positioning ourselves as a university, as a leader, as a leading university towards transforming employability and social change in East Africa. So these are some of fundamental questions that we can be asking ourselves going forward. Now, I talked about this, and it's good that we have a visual to put down, some image to the words that I use to explain this. There is usually the direct service, which is addressing the immediate needs of specific individual or community. The specific need here is we want the students at UMU to graduate as problem solvers, critical thinkers. We want a gender responsive pedagogy. We want to have learners and lecturers and instructors having redefining learning and teaching experience to empower them, right? So that is direct service. That is what the TESCEA project, the TESCEA leadership, the JAG leadership have brought into the universities, more direct. Then now scaling the direct service. This is solving a social problem at a regional or national level. Okay. So how do we begin to have these insights embrace the practices embraced by other universities? It could be universities that are affiliated to UMU, or even just looking at it internally, because this is still at department level, I think. So beginning to look at how do we influence other departments to embrace these other courses? How do we bring that critical mass of courses around these innovations and transformation? Then we move to the systems change, which is what the project widely anticipates. This is looking at the root cause. What is the root cause, and how are we addressing that root cause? So tackling a root cause for a social problem in such a way that it changes the way a system operates. And Joseph's, again, perfect example of how to effect system change. Policy gets to change, people's mindset change, the way people relate to a certain issue change. That is when you say you have occasion systems change. And that's, so basically, if you look at it that way, you'll realize that the kind of changes, when we are implementing a project, it addresses changes in different ways. And I always look at this like in three ways. So there are, you can be looking at a symptom of a problem. So you are tackling a symptom. So it is absolutely important to know when you are tackling a symptom. It is not bad. It is just for you. It is important to know that this is a symptom we are tackling. Then there is the systems change now. So when you are tackling, the systems behind the symptom, you're working to change the system that is causing the symptoms that we are seeing. The lack of confidence among students to jump out and become entrepreneurs and to fend for themselves, the lack of that sense of freedom in terms of the abilities that they have, those are symptoms. They're manifesting. They're symptoms, and it's good. We can address them. But then when you go to system change, now you're thinking, what is the system behind this symptom? It is the upbringing. It is the growing up experience of young people, from upbringing at home to socialization at the early stages of primary, nursery, primary school. You come all the way that entire value chain. It is that experience. So you look at how do we tackle those systems. Then there is the big one, which Ashoka is usually big on, because this is where we are, and because we have done this, and I'm giving this as an example for us to have a better understanding. It is a change of mindset. Now, changing mindset, not even reflected here, because most of the time when we get system change, it is fine. But mindset shift is what Ashoka aims at. And we aim at this because with social entrepreneurship, we achieved it. We got the world to understand there is this field that is not your traditional business enterprise, and it is not your traditional charity work. It is unique, and we have helped the world to see the uniqueness of that field. And now people are being trained about that field. There's a lot of organizations supporting social entrepreneurs. We have so many people also, now emerging as social entrepreneurs, and it's because we work with people like Joseph to help the world understand the uniqueness and what they do. And so that caused a mindset shift. people beginning to know like, okay, there is something distinctively unique about this. It is not charity, and it is not just your traditional average business. That is my incentive, because it goes to the very bottom of the symptoms and the systems. So it transcends the symptoms, it transcends the system, and it goes to the bottom. It is now, the part that sort of just causes that like global change also. And I'm just talking about that because to give just an example. But for us in TESCEA, we are looking at how do we affect systemic change. Let me pause there for a while just to get your reactions. But I know also time is running out. I know there were concerns. Like I said, I will share more resources, and I will also try work with Felix and of course the JAG leadership as well to see if we can get another time, maybe during the next JAG meeting or TSG meeting, to revisit some of these things and now get into hear more from you, from the team here, on how now you're beginning to position everything that you've been doing. How do you align everything that we have been doing now to prepare to make that big push for systems change? So I will stop here for a minute just to get any reactions, any feedback, any comments.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yes.
This is the usual Albert.
Yes, Albert. Very, yeah, encouraged.
I thank you and the colleagues, Professor Max and Mr. Nkand, for the very good discussion. This slide here is, for me, very touching, and I think it embodies what we have faced as a project along the 2.5 years or so of its existence. We found we have very many good ideas, but the system was blocking. We had that block. You wouldn't scale this up. You wouldn't share this easily. You wouldn't do certain things because there is a system where you have to fit. But probably those who do prepare that system are not maybe as prepared as, for instance, this project as prepared as. I shared something in the chat there. We have always had a model of a university as an ivory tower that was working alone, like Mr. Nkandu said some previous meetings before. We're doing things at the university different from what the industry is doing, and we think we are preparing people who are going to work in the industry or in the public sector. For me, this coming together, like with the industry, public sector, is one of the best things that have happened to the educational system in Uganda, where we identify real problems together and solving them together. And I think this is how you change a system, tackling the root causes of the social problems.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Thank you. I really appreciate your comments. Yeah, I've seen just seen the comment you're talking about. Okay. Any other comment? And so, Albert, in fact, what you've asked now takes me to, like, I'm kind of just shifting a little bit. There's something at the back of my mind just to help us also explain, because you've touched on how the difficulties the project has had to endure. And this is true for any kind of innovation. In fact, Mr. Nkandu will tell you, as a social entrepreneur or as an innovator, if you do not come across any form of resistance, then as an innovator, as a social entrepreneur, an innovator here, I mean, even if you're an educator, but innovating something, if you do not come, across obstacles, resistance, then you're up to nothing. Like there is nothing you're doing, Well, when you come through this resistance and obstacles, it's because you are actually up to something big. You are actually on a journey to change a system, because it is only systems that are usually comfortable with the way things are. Status quo is the resting place of systems. there
Listen,
is
can I chip in there?
yes, Stephen,
You know, it is interesting. Just two
yeah,
examples. One,
yeah,
when I started, you know, agitating for the formulation of the first ever Uganda's national coffee policy. Oh
yeah.
my Lord, you know, people went up in arms with me. What are you talking about? And and you know why? Because the people were benefiting from a system
Yeah.
which is not, you know, organized. Okay, so it was you know, a real challenge, and what I had to do to shift it away from being the only one whose head is high up was to mobilize over 5,000 coffee farmers in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and also, you know, identifying, you know, a very prominent person who has worked with government before, very respected, and then we put this up, you know, to the wider kind of society to talk about, and then government could not hesitate anymore to start the formulation of the national coffee policy. So I agree with you that is something that is, you know, good. We have to face some resistance here and there. And as we speak today, you know, whereas all, you know, the other East African coffee producing countries, their production is going up,
Yeah.
Uganda's coffee production is going up, is going down. You know, when you look at Kenya, Tanzania, and all the others, coffee production is going down. But Uganda's coffee production is going up.
Going up. Yeah.
So yes, and of course, you know, also colleagues from there have come to learn from what we did, and they have also moved on to influence the, you know, government policy. So
Yeah.
that is one. The second one, when I went to Makerere for curriculum reform, you know, a very good professor said, Joseph, what you are saying is good, but I want to tell you, change of a university curriculum is extremely hard. I said, yes, I agree with you, but should we continue with the garbage in, garbage out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he said, okay, we need to take some steps. Then said, you know, even it requires funding. Where can we get money? I said, oh, professor, we
Yeah.
should be able to get money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
just to bring you to speed, within a period of, you know, 1 year, we had already mobilized the $2 million to start the process, and you know, causing curriculum reforms. But of course, others were resisting. They thought that the subjects that we had then, you know, they were the ones that could continue. So I had to face a lot of resistance. Mm. Of course,
Yeah.
the third one was also to say that coffee farmers also can process their coffee to a finished product. You know, those from trade already, the multinationals were already fighting me big time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you enable the coffee farmers to process the coffee into a finished product, where are we going to be? You see? But
Yeah.
as I speak now, for the farmers that are able to take their coffee through our system, earning an increase of 250% in income.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, something good, you always have to find, you know, a lot of difficulties, and the people will always fight you. The system will always fight you. But if it is the impact that you are looking for the benefit of a wider society,
Yeah.
then, you know, it is important that you continue fighting. That's what I wanted to add.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Joseph. Because then it leads me to looking at for us to look at the 5R analysis. I'm looking at our time there. I think we're proceeding well. We'll jump one of the group breakout sessions because I think that there is a lot that this conversation is also eliciting and a better understanding. So the 5R analysis, and you know, when we are talking about Makerere and you know, they asking where are we going to get the fund, I think it reminded me immediately that one of the things that we have to think about when you are thinking of systems and how the systems work to produce the outcome that we are aiming at is to look at these 5 things. One, the resources. So, and this is where Felix, I mean, there are all of us as a team, I think we will have some work to do. Maybe after the call, we can have an online document that we will continue to populate whenever we have time, so that then it's a living document, and the next JAG meeting we can produce it and say this is now what we are seeing in terms of effecting systems change, which of course will come after institutionalizing, after having this very strong prototype that is UMU. So we look at resources, and when you think about resources, it's of course the money, you know, where the fund is going to come from, the people, the culture. They're quite self-explanatory. So when we be thinking of UMU in terms of being a leader and pushing to a systems change, this we will need to have some of these answers. But I'll ask a couple of questions so that then they can help us in. My intention was to have this discussing group, but I'm hoping to just finish in good time. The second thing is the rules. What are the laws that we need to change? What laws are a barrier to this? Whether what are the impediment in terms of laws that are governing you know, certain sectors, the legal and policy frameworks for say, you know, the agriculture sector? Are there some laws there that impede interaction between the academia and the industry, right? Are there some policies within universities that are not welcoming for people who are probably do not have the papers, you know, to fully deliver knowledge as lecturers, but they have knowledge out of experience? Are there policies there that are hindering all this, you know, that is not making it possible for us to tap into our indigenous knowledge? So let's look at those, some of the ways that you now begin to stretch, you know, the system. What is the culture? You know, when we have a culture, and I read this from today on Facebook page, one of my close friends, you know, one of my very young close friends, she has posted something that, you know, progress has been hindered a lot by a culture that puts people down, right? And I was looking at it and I was like, this is really spot on. I mean, this is really spot on. Is there a culture, whether within the university or in the sector as a whole, that is more of a barrier than being an enabler? And I always talk about this a lot because I feel the role of any adult, whichever position you are in relation to young people, is to move barriers for them, is to accelerate them in terms of growing as you know, critical thinkers and problem solvers, in terms of helping them grow their levels of confidence, grow that sense of freedom of things that they can do. But if you look at the growing up experience, and the African culture is very notorious with this, where people are told, I mean, from a very young age, children are here to be seen, not to be heard. Well, we need to have some order, yeah, that is true. But also we need to start reflecting on some of these statements. How do they impede on the growth of young people in terms of confidence, in terms of that sense of freedom? By the time they're getting into the university, they have been put down so much, they hesitate a lot. Like failure has become like, it is almost like a death sentence. People fear because they will be ridiculed, because of all these things that will be done, everything negative. They will not be encouraged. They will be put on a certain spot, like all those kind of things. Let's look at the laws, the policies, the cultures. Then look at the roles. What is the role of the different professions that we have in the ecosystem? What is the role of the social setup? You know, What do titles denote? And again, also here, also we're looking at culture. Then the relationships, the hierarchies. A lot of times, and I think Albert, you're talking about this, the university is being an ivory tower. And as someone who's not in the academia and who looks at universities from outside, I can tell you, we see it so much, and it is no-brainer. These are ivory towers. And the one way, when you dissect that and you see where it comes from, it is just because of the hierarchy. Like, universities are so hierarchical, and this is a problem. And it's good that most of you, I mean, we're talking from this is where you're having your experience right now. There is a need. I mean, and I feel like it is a very urgent need for universities to just transform, like to really, 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 really transform. The role that universities play in preparing the next generation of leaders, the next generation of change makers, the next generation of social entrepreneurs, or even the next generation of first-class employees is huge. It's really, really, really huge. And it is where we are banking our hope. I think as a population in Africa, we're banking our hope in the universities, in the higher education space, to direct us where we should go. Higher education should not be playing catch up. So we end up seeing universities playing catch up because of the hierarchical nature. Like, there's too much bureaucracy. There is too much bureaucracy, and no innovation ever saw the light of day at the right time where there is a lot of bureaucracy. It never happens. Right now, during COVID-19, we've seen a lot of governments and private sector, the way they were responding to it was super slow. Government is super, super slow. But the rest are super slow. You look at the way social entrepreneurs responded to this. And I was part of a launch of a report by the British Council last week, and the UN. They did a survey on how social entrepreneurs responded, and actually they were looking at the response to COVID-19 across different sectors. And we were not surprised that social entrepreneurs seem to have responded really well relative to the rest. And then the ones in Africa, like, it was so easy for them to adapt and to find ways to solve it. It was so refreshing. And then, so for me, I stated in that forum that for Africans, I was referring to social entrepreneurs, but I think generally for Africans, I think the landscape for us really demands of us to be resilient. So social entrepreneurs are resilient out of necessity, and most of us are. But where you have a system that is so bureaucratic, that is so hell-bent on hierarchy, and this is the way it's supposed to be, it kills that resilience. That's why people start thinking, like, can we push this without funding already? It takes away, it saps away passion, that conviction around a bigger thing. It sucks that away from individuals. You have so many brilliant minds and so many creatives in terms of really thinking solutions, I mean, within these ivory towers, but then they don't get to see the light of day. They're not celebrated. So this is a lot. I could go on and on about that. And I know also, Professor Max has been part of this conversation when we were saying, we look at TESCEA and all these brilliant innovations, ideas that have come through. How do you even institutionalize this? And that was always the issue of, what should universities do? Because if you want people to drive this change, what incentivizes them? How are you going to incentivize them? And so these are some of the things that UMU would want to start looking into. How do you create a culture, relationships that support scaling of innovations? And of course, the fifth R is the results. So we need to be very clear. What sort of outcomes do we want to achieve? What do we want to see at the end of the day? But I want to almost stop there. We have 15 minutes, and like I promised, we want to make sure that we just use these 2 hours.
There is a hand.
Yeah.
There is a hand.
Okay, all right, yes. Okay, please go ahead. Then I will come to something that, Albert triggered when he made a comment. It was not part of this, but it fits really, really well. So yeah, let's hear the comment.
Dr. Ouma. Dr. Ouma, you can unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Yes, I just wanted to give my own observation with issues of change management or changing systems, and possibly with reference to your specific project of TESCEA. Now, the issue of systems change actually at UMU is not a new thing. It's something that we used with some project, I think in 2012. Those of you, especially possibly people like Jacinta, most of the people left the institution. That's another thing to when you are looking at the issue of sustainability. When we are starting the agroecology project with the University of Mekelle and the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, the mode was actually emphasizing on systems, and we said the key things that universities cannot work in isolation, looking at themselves as an end in themselves. And I've liked the aspect where you're bringing in issues of, like, for example, if in the case of agriculture, you cannot talk of agriculture in isolation of the wider system. We are looking at the university training, developing a curriculum, but for who? Is the industry involved? Are the parents aware of what's going on? How about our alumni, the students who left? How about the traders, people who buy possibly what we are going to produce, the employers? So it's something very, very important. And that's why I was saying that usually when we are using this, we would refer to the peanut model that looks at the interrelationships between the different parties involved. Like we are an institution, the government is there, the employers are there, the industry is there. How do we link all these different entities so that we come up with something that can take us ahead? Now, that is just by the way. Now, coming back to the TESCEA project, I have liked the mode. First, the enthusiasm of the people that are within the project. That is something very, very important. I'm always worried on issues of sustainability because one of the things that made the other project not to go very far, though it led at least to development of a PhD program at the end, but there was an element of people leaving the institution and the ones who are in charge of something. But have they left roots behind? That is something very, very important. And I see it coming in within this particular project that the trainings are going on and bringing in new parties, which is very, very important. But I would like to see, especially the faculties, the 4 faculties that have been in this system, is there something that you are doing over and above what other faculties are doing that people can say, yes, without even you spreading the gospel by the word of mouth, that other faculties can look at and say, yes, there is something new that TESCEA has brought about. And I think faculties that were involved are doing something over and above us. That's one way of bringing other people on board willingly. The other thing which I want us to think of, I don't know how many of you could be much familiar with the penguin approach. If you're not very clear on it, you just go to YouTube and Google the penguin approach to change management. There are always strategists, which I like in your setup, strategists, the Freddies, who come up and explain there is a problem. Then we have also the allies. You need to identify the allies within the system. I think these are the people we can work up to influence. But always, as one of the facilitators said, there will always be a fear among many people. Not change. It won't just come up and we are used to the way we do our own things. So we may not easily come on board. So we need to take time as you are doing to explain. This is it. This is the problem. But if we did it this way, we can do it better. The penguins had a problem because some went and they said, hey, our iceberg is melting. Other people did not realize it, that tomorrow we shall not have where to stay. So if we package our package very well, sell the idea to others, and create that element of continuous training also to bring many people on board, so that even if you're not there, the initiators, we can, the project can take roots and be developed in the system. The only thing which I wanted possibly to comment on is that when I read the aspect of institutionalizing, they say I a little bit got worried. I said, how do we institutionalize a project? Because a project has particular objectives, it has a lifespan, it has particular participants. How do we institutionalize it in the university? And my concern went on the other side. I said, but there are so many things coming out of this project. Why wouldn't we use possibly an aspect of, let's say, benchmarking from the projects, and you people, you bring for us out to clear aspects. Let's say these are what's the items that we should consider and should be put in the system. Policies can be influenced. I remember one of the aspects was to do with when I was developing a tool on peer evaluation. Actually, I dwelt on the TESCEA, what you had done, because I saw it's something good. And when I saw it to Senate, they accepted it and it became part of, now it is a working document for the university. So just package, bring out clear things with policy we can find a way of influencing, so long as we know is something which is important for the benefit of the university and can be sustainable. I submit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. For members of JAG, Dr. Uma is the Director of Quality Assurance at Uganda Martyrs University. Thank you, Dr. Uma.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you so much, Dr. Uma. And in fact, I had marked that one of the things that I was going to ask at the end was about the peanut model. And, you've explained it. And I also like the illustration about the penguin approach. This is really perfect. And also immediately what I've just taken away, and I know, Felix, you're recording this because this what Dr. Uma said toward the end is really important. Like already there are elements from TESCEA that is taken up, discussed with the Senate. Like there's already part of, and that is what I meant, and that's why I said I was even using the term institutionalizing loosely. But when we have some elements already getting into the system, the policies of the universities, the culture of the university, that's a win. That's a win, and it's good to see that in terms of support and goodwill, that's already there. And I mean, I'm not surprised also when you say that UMU is not new to systems change. I think and I've always said this, even within the partnership, without any fear or favor, that UMU seems to be way, way ahead of all the other universities in terms of implementing TESCEA. But that is also because there is an infrastructure, I think, that is more supportive compared to other universities. There is already a culture that is more adaptive to new ways. It's already accommodative. It's open. Like there is that openness in innovations and embracing those innovations. So it's really refreshing. Thank you so much for your comments. So after looking at these five, and we have 6 minutes, and I'm just wrapping it up. So we've looked at those, the 5 analysis, looking at the resources, the rules, the roles, relationships, and results. And I know for the marks now, when you're looking at the different elements that has come through TESCEA, we can probably, as we work on the East Africa model, and I'm seeing UMU contributing immensely to crystallizing that idea of the East Africa model. But as we do that, I know there will be elements here that, the leadership, the TESCEA leadership within the university and the JAG leadership will want to push. So TESCEA leadership within the university will want to push within the university, win more faculties over. I think I like that. Let you try and win more people over. Let's not run roughshod over other people and, kind of just win them over. And then the JAG leadership and the leadership of Mr. Nkandu can begin to look externally. So externally, what are the relationships that we need to have? What sort of resources, broadly, and that will be the relationship, the partnership that we need to have. Where should we be changing in the broader policy? Look at the roles, look at the relationships, and look at the results. So we have to work in tandem and synchronize in a synchronized way. So there are a few things that I want to say just to wrap it up. One, so we've understood what system change is, the different elements to it, and we also looked at this 5R analysis, and we are coming to a conclusion where we're saying that it is a shift. It has to be a shift, that looks at the underlying dynamics to create a solution that will produce a better outcome. And so, Felix, there are a few things here that I want us to do. I want us to build, if we are going to create maybe an online document, whenever members have time, we can try and input on this. So for TESCEA, I want us to look at these, 6 issues. One, where do we need, what do we need to unlock new resources for the system that we are talking about to draw on? The first question is, how do we unlock new resources? That is important. I mean, if we are going to popularize some of these elements within the university, or even push this to the system out there, we need to be thinking about, and this is what Dr. Omar, you also mentioned in terms of sustainability. What are some of how do we unlock some new resources and where? So let's think about unlocking new resources, for the new system that we are thinking about to draw on. The second thing is, what are the new elements we are introducing? Or what are the new elements, or what are the elements we are getting rid of? For us to really get this, again, back even to the sustainability within the institution and pushing it forward, we have to be very clear. Dr. Uma, you mentioned this. What are those elements? We have to be very clear and communicate these elements. What are the new elements we're introducing, and what elements are we getting rid of to get us to have critical thinkers, problem solvers? The third thing, what needs to change within these elements? What kind of relationships need to change between the different elements of this system, between the students and the lecturers, between the lecturers and the students and the parents and the community? Think about all the relationships. Is there something that needs to change? I mean, we will be inputting our ideas on that document. Then the fourth one is, where should we improve the flow of information between all the actors, between the university leadership, the Senate, the faculties, the students, parents, industry? Where should we improve flow of information? The fifth one is, what rules should change? What rules that govern behavior in the system should we aim at changing? And again, because I think Sibo already mentioned this in your comment, that it seems like TESCEA has already been part of this system change journey. That is true. So let's now be clear. What rules should change, between, different players and the behavior in the system? Yeah. You think of whether it is the admin relationship with the rest, the relationship that govern our behavior within this system. You think about the system at the university and also broadly. Then the last one is, what mindset need to change on the part of all the actors that we are involving in TESCEA, that we want to involve? What mindset should shift? The industry players, the sector leaders, people like Mr. Nkandu, what mindset shift should be there? What mindset shift should be with the students, with the parents, with the university leadership? Let's think about the kind of mindset that we want, because all these 6 questions or comments, and as we build on them, will help us structuring the next key steps. I will work closely with Felix to see how this is panning out. Then hopefully in the next JAG meeting, this is what we should be presenting to the JAG leadership and the TSG leadership. Like, this is where we now want to focus this. This is how we want to move. Synthesize all the answers that we will have gotten and come up with next steps for each of these. We can present that to the JAG and take it from there. I want to stop here. We're just almost right on time. If there are any questions, any comments, but between now and the time we finalize this, I will try and put together a few other resources and I will share with you. This is also a learning process for us. If there is anything like I like the peanut model, I will not forget that, and also the penguin approach. If there are any other resources around systems change that you'd want to share with us, I'd really appreciate. Let me stop there. If there are any comments or any questions, just want to make sure that we respect everyone's time. Many of you had expressed other commitments, but you've been able to stay with us the course of those 2 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent, for the wonderful presentation. I must say that the attendance has been very good. Of course, today there have been coinciding meetings, especially for the graduation that is taking place on Friday at Uganda Matters University. But indeed, we thank Dr. Ouma for being present to this meeting. I hope he has picked the views that have come and he'll be able to share this with management. So with that, maybe we can invite questions, but Mr. Joseph Nkandu, I don't know whether you have any remarks, maybe. Mr. Nkandu Joseph.
Thank you very much, Felix. Thank you very much, Vincent, and all those that have participated. What I want to say quickly, and for me, it is based on the work that I have done, that I continue to do. For mindset change, to cause a change, whether in university, whether with the government, as far as the rules or policies are concerned, and even, society, farmers in this case, what I have experienced is that, data analytics is very important. So if we are talking about changing things in the university, let us bring out, data. If we want to change things that there is need for policy, let that be supported by data. So in all that we are saying, as far as systems change is concerned, it becomes very easy for people to change when the whole approach is backed up by, facts and figures. When I elaborated the entire coffee value chain, and I always talk about this, that many people talk about value chains, but without values. When I elaborated the entire coffee value chain from the farm to the cup in terms of, incremental values, I'm telling you, this is when government said, oh, it's important. We needed really to have a national coffee policy. When I talked to the university, said, yes, it is important. Now we can see a student can look at this entire value chain and say, this is where an investment is required. So all in all, what I'm saying, and these are my final remarks, is that we need data analytics, and the university is a very important place, to do this, to influence policy and cause change in society. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, Felix.
Yes, I'm trying to check if there's any question or hand, but all I see is that everyone is excited about the wonderful conversation that we have had today morning. So with that, maybe Vincent, the floor is back to you. Maybe any closing remarks and the next steps, then we can close today. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Yes, let me not take us any longer. I really want to appreciate Felix. Thank you for facilitating this. Thank you, Ms. Nkandu, for your invaluable contribution. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Dr. Uma. Thank you, Sibo. I think Felicity also, you've been making comments. Betty, I can see your comments. Thanks everyone for taking time. And I want to really thank you all for allowing me the space to remind us some of the things that I am very confident that we already know of, just to take us through this more of a refresher journey of what systems change is all about, and connecting it with the TESCEA work that we have been doing. And also just want to say congratulations to the TESCEA team at UMU, because a lot, many universities and of course these other partners, Ashoka and AFET, we really learn, a lot from you guys, how you are driving the project. So thank you for also sharing, a lot of the things that you are doing. So in terms of next step, so the live document will welcome us all to try and provide some insights on those 6 areas that I've mentioned. Then I will work with Felix to try and synthesize all that together. Then out of which we will come up with the next steps towards systems change. One, what elements can be institutionalized, what elements can we count on Dr. Uma to, as a champion for TESCEA, and what elements do we begin to harness and crystallize to position UMU within the broader ecosystem as a leader in innovation and transformation of higher education. Thank you so much. Back to you, Felix. You can adjourn, or Chairman, are you the one to adjourn the meeting? It was more of JAG and TSG.
It has to be the chairman.
Yeah,
Well,
Chairman,
it was not a meeting as such. It was,
yeah.
it was a sharing session. So I take this opportunity to thank you, Vincent, for this wonderful exposure. We need more. We need more, from you, from Ashoka. It is indeed transformative. And I pray and I hope colleagues from the university really have taken up this very, very seriously, as it has always been, for UMU. People are very, they are ready really to cause a transformative change, to our society. Thanks to Professor Ngavirano, for attending and being active. Thanks to Dr. Uma and Albert, for your active participation in this. Yeah, thanks to Felix for organizing and facilitating, the entire process. Thank you very much, and we adjourn, our sharing to another time. So we look forward.
Oh yeah, I've seen there is a request for a photo.
I hope he takes it.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Yes. Albert, are you taking the photo?
And so everyone, we should have all our videos on, so that then we can.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Albert. Felix, are you taking it?
Albert?
Yes, I can take it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sibo, you look like Savimbi. I can know where you got it from. Okay. Felix, are you through?
Trying to get some part trying to connect the videos. Let me see.
Okay.
Uh,
It's good to see all the faces
Everyone,
now.
I think.
That's
Bye.
very, Felix, how are you? Very good.
Well, how are you?
good.
Thank you. Good to see the faces now. I'm really excited.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
time.
All right.
Thank you,
All
Felix.
right.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the rest of the
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.